We need to talk about the Apple TV, because if the latest reports are right, the 2026 Apple TV 4K could be the biggest update this little box has ever seen. If you're anything like me, you've probably looked at your entertainment setup and wondered, where is the next Apple TV? We all expected a major refresh in 2025. Rumors were flying, leakers were confident, the hype was building. And then nothing. Total silence from Apple, but now the noise is back. New leaks are pointing to a 2026 Apple TV 4K release, which means we're heading toward more than 3 years since the current model launched. In tech years, that's a lifetime. So the big question is this new Apple TV going to be worth the wait, or is Apple just dragging things out? Let's dive into everything we know so far about the 2026 Apple TV 4K design, performance, gaming, smart home features, and price. Because if even half of this comes true, this upgrade could seriously change how you use your TV. Let's start with the obvious question: is the Apple TV finally getting a redesign? If you were hoping for a wild new look of glass top and ultra-thin puck, a new color like white or space gray, you might want to dial back those expectations. According to the latest reports, Apple is sticking with the same basic design language we have right now. That means a slim black unbranded plastic box that quietly disappears into your TV stand. No RGB lights, no crazy shapes, nothing that screams, "Look at me." And honestly, that might be a smart move. The Apple TV has always been designed to blend into your entertainment center, not dominate it. It's compact, silent, and minimal. You set it up once, tuck it away, and forget about it. From Apple's perspective, putting engineering effort into the internals instead of the outer shell makes more sense, especially if they're trying to keep the price down. So, while a sexy new chassis would have been nice, keeping the existing form factor helps Apple reuse tooling, streamline manufacturing, and focus on what actually matters: performance, features, and value. And that's where things start to get interesting. On the inside, the 2026 Apple TV 4K is shaping up to be a serious upgrade. The current Apple TV 4K runs on the A17 Bionic chip, the same processor from the iPhone 13 lineup. It's still perfectly capable for streaming and casual gaming. But by 2026, that chip is going to feel dated. The rumor mill says the next-gen Apple TV isn't just getting a small bump, it's jumping multiple generations ahead. One of the strongest possibilities on the table is the A17 Pro chip, the same one that debuted in the iPhone 15 Pro. Why is that a big deal? The A17 Pro was Apple's first 3nm chip. That means better efficiency, higher performance, and far more graphical power than what we have now. And that leads to one word Apple has been quietly circling for years: gaming. The A17 Pro features a powerful 6-core GPU with hardware-accelerated ray tracing. In plain English, this chip can handle realistic lighting, shadows, and reflections that look much closer to what you'd expect from a PlayStation or an Xbox than from a tiny streaming box. We've already seen console-style titles like Resident Evil 4 and Death Stranding running natively on iPhones, powered by the A17 Pro. Now imagine that kind of performance on your big TV with proper controllers, without needing a $500 console. That's the pitch, and it doesn't stop there. Depending on timing, Apple could even choose a newer chip, the A18 or A19 from upcoming iPhones, to make the 2026 Apple TV 4K even more future-proof. That would give developers a longer runway for Apple Arcade titles and premium App Store games optimized for the living room. If Apple leans into this and actually markets the Apple TV as a compact, affordable gaming machine, the 2026 model could become the sleeper gaming device of the year, especially for people already invested in the Apple ecosystem. Of course, all that power is useless if your internet connection can't keep up. So let's talk connectivity. When it comes to streaming 4K HDR movies, Dolby Vision content, and high bitrate Atmos audio, bandwidth is everything. Add cloud gaming and online multiplayer into the mix, and Wi-Fi goes from nice to have to absolutely critical. The next Apple TV 4K is expected to ship with a custom Apple-designed wireless chip handling both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. The baseline expectation is support for Wi-Fi 6E, and there are even whispers about W7. Wi-Fi 6E opens up the 6 GHz banda, kind of high-speed data superhighway that's far less congested than the traditional 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz lanes. If you've got a modern 6E capable router, this means faster, more stable 4K and 4K HDR streaming, significantly reduced buffering, more reliable performance when your home is full of connected devices, rock-solid latency for game, streaming and online play. Wi-Fi 6E is the safe bet, but if Apple manages to include Wi-Fi 7, the 2026 Apple TV could be ahead of the curve for years. On the Bluetooth side, we're expecting an upgrade to Bluetooth 5.3. That might not sound exciting, but it matters for how you actually use the box. Better stability for AirPods, lower latency for wireless audio, and more responsive connections for game controllers like the PS5 DualSense or Xbox controllers. And if you're into smart homes, you'll be happy to hear that Apple isn't abandoning that role. The Apple TV 4K is currently one of the best home hubs you can own, and that's set to continue. The 2026 Apple TV is expected to keep support for Thread and Matter, which are the key standards for next-gen smart home devices. That means your Apple TV remains the central brain of your smart home setup, handling automations, remote access, and device coordination behind the scenes. So whether you're using HomeKit lights, smart locks, thermostats, or cameras, the new Apple TV should keep everything running smoothly, while also handling streaming and gaming. Now let's get to the part that usually hurts with Apple. Price. Every time Apple updates a product, we instinctively brace for a price increase. But this time, the opposite might be happening. Reliable analyst Min-Chi Kuo has suggested that Apple is targeting a lower price point for the next Apple TV, potentially under $100. That would be a huge shift. Right now, the Apple TV 4K starts around $129. It's noticeably more expensive than a Roku, Chromecast, or Fire TV stick, and that price has always been its biggest barrier. Imagine this: Apple releases a 2026 Apple TV 4K with an A17 Pro or newer chip, Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3, full smart home hub capabilities, and console-style gaming potential at $99. At that price, Apple instantly becomes way more competitive in the streaming device market. A sub-$100 Apple TV with this kind of power would make it a no-brainer for a lot of people choosing between Apple TV versus Roku versus Fire TV. There are a few ways Apple could play this. Option 1. Drop the new Apple TV 4K to under $100 and discontinue the current model. Option 2. Keep the existing Apple TV 4K as a cheaper budget option and slot the new, more powerful version slightly higher, but still closer to that magic $9 mark than $129. Either way, a significantly more affordable Apple TV 4K with next-gen performance would be a game-changer for Apple's presence in the living room. So, when are you actually going to be able to buy this thing? Originally, the roadmap seemed to point to a late 2025 launch. That window has basically disappeared. The updated expectation right now is a release in spring 2026. That timing is interesting for a couple of reasons. First, it gives Apple more time to finalize the chip choice, optimize tvOS, and make sure all the smart home features and gaming capabilities feel polished. Second, there have been persistent rumors for years about a new kind of Apple device for the home. Some kind of HomePod with a built-in screen, possibly combining an Apple TV box, a high-quality speaker, a display for video widgets, and smart home controls, a camera for FaceTime and video calls. If Apple is still working on a device like that, Launching the new Apple TV 4K alongside a dedicated smart home display would make a lot of sense. It would clearly signal that Apple is building a complete cohesive ecosystem for the living room, not just updating a single box.